285 games. That's it. That is a wrap. That is a wrap. And your Philadelphia Eagles are champions again. Hey, everybody. It is no longer the weekend. It is no longer football season. Hope you're doing well. Andrew Siciliano back in the home office here after getting back from New Orleans around 5:30 in the morning, crawled into my own bed. I want to thank the good folks at United Airlines for scheduling a 2 a.m. flight out of New Orleans, which was an amazing Super Bowl host. However, I was happy to get home. I was happy to eat something green, like a vegetable. I'll be eating salads this week after 5 days in New Orleans. Yes, they do have vegetables there in Louisiana, in New Orleans, but all of them are covered in butter and cream sauce. It's great, great to be here. Congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles, and congratulations to Sam Betesh, my partner on this show, on this podcast. By the way, this is Thinking Out Loud. We appreciate you being here. Sam, when I say congratulations to a fan of a team that won a championship, you say so as if that person did something. I know you didn't, but I know you rented out a movie theater. You have the friends and the family there. It was your fandom, clearly, as we both just laughed at an Onion headline. Nick Sirianni, his message to Eagles fans: congratulations for your championship.
The Sirianni headline, for those that haven't seen it, yes, please go check out The Onion and Nick Sirianni. Yeah, this felt like it was going to be the ultimate jinx, renting out a movie theater to invite your friends.
There is no such thing as a jinx.
You're right. I think just personally in my life, to have cousins watch me melt down during a game would be the jinx for me.
Did you melt down during this game?
No.
I mean, other than A.J. Brown getting called for OPI, which was the right call. He hit him in the face. The Eagles like hitting people in the face. It was the right call.
It felt, you know what's interesting? Well, first of all, let's go there, right? First of all, thank you. The congratulations it's a strange thing. Your friends, which we are very much, we do. And I know, by the way, I want you to reiterate this point.
I hate how many times you say, by the way. No, it's something else. I'm sorry.
You hate the consolation text. When a team season ends and your friend is a fan of that team, and then you get the text, "Hey man, sorry,
I don't mind.
Season.
I don't mind that.
I know you don't love it. I know you don't. I
mean, I don't mind the good feeling, but I'm not going to respond to it.
No, there's nothing to say.
Yeah.
And the congratulations, as you mentioned. What did I do? I wished they won the game, and they did. I mean, I gave, probably $1,500 worth of concessions to a movie theater in Glendale, California. Look Cinemas.
Did they give you a break on the popcorn?
They did. It's quite an experience. It's not, you've been to Cosm here. I have not.
I have.
Cosm in LA. So I haven't done the Cosm experience, which is different. Cosm, this is not what I did, was not Cosm. Cosm is a little bit next level, where they place you sort of in the feel of being in the end zone, or, but this was still a movie theater, movie screen. I mean, it was great. We had a fantastic time and all of that. But in regards to OPI, the broadcast is so responsible for the responsibility that falls on the broadcast in that moment, though, that dictates what people are going to think. Do you agree with me with that? Because what happens is, now it's a conversation. You're at whatever Mike Pereira says in that moment is going to dictate reaction. Obviously, forget about the fact that Philadelphia is upset that it's a fourth down that's being taken away, right? A fourth down conversion that's taken away. So of course, but I'm talking about what the world will now think of that is based so much on what Tom Brady says in the moment and what Mike Pereira says as an explanation. And it went through that play and through the commercial break with the world thinking that the broadcast thought it was ticky-tack.
And then Mike Pereira came out afterwards and said, "You got hit in the face."
Got hit in the face.
Okay, so full disclosure, I was at the game. I was watching in a suite, and I'm not upset about it. I'm very grateful for the opportunity. We don't have the audio on. There's no audio on of the TV in the suite. There's a little bit of a delay. I mean, you're watching the field and you look back at the monitor. That's kind of the mechanics of it. And I said, I got hit in the face. No big deal. And I tweeted that. Having no idea what Mike Pereira's analysis was.
Sure.
And that is, it's ticky-tack if you don't hit him in the face. If you hit him in the face, that's got to be OPI, period. And then I watched back this morning after I arrived home, and I'm like, good, Mike Pereira said it. We are exactly on the same page. But I was blown away by like Twitter guys, friends who played DB in the league, like Will Blackman tweeting, come on, man, that's ticky-tack. And I'm like, wait a minute. If you are out there covering A.J. Brown and A.J. Brown hit you in the face, don't you think it should be OPI? But
I was, many people looked at me, people that listen to us were there in the movie theater, and they know how you feel and I feel about the idea that there is a conspiracy, an officiating conspiracy surrounding the Chiefs. And in that moment, people asked me, Sam, should I get my tinfoil hat? Is this now going to happen? And I walked around and I said, you know what? If there is a call later that is maybe questionable that goes the Eagles' way, that'll be fine. Just put that in your pocket and say later in the game. And by the way, it happened. Dallas Goedert, the pass interference that went for the Eagles was
exactly
questionable a few plays later. And at that point, the officiating was not a story the entire game.
No, and the Chiefs had another bad one go their way as well with the unnecessary roughness yes. on that incompletion, with hitting Saquon late as well. That was, a love tap. Listen, I had conversations, a couple of conversations during the week with some pretty significant league people. Let's just put it that way. And I made the point, and I think everyone agrees. I think there's a really good piece in The Athletic late in the week as well, just about how ridiculous this idea that the league conspires because they want the Chiefs to win, just how ridiculous it is. Let's do the thought experiment. And honestly, we're wasting our time. We should be talking about the Vic Fangio defense. I wanted Vic. Jalen played great, deserved the trophy. I wanted Vic to be the MVP of the game just so we could see Vic say he wants to go to Disney World. Vic Fangio grumbling through going to Disney World is all I'm here for. But the conversation I had with people around the league, okay, owners, coaches, executives, was this. Why does anyone think it benefits the league to have the same team winning over and over again? This is a league built on the idea that any team can go worst to first. This is a league that has had for 35 consecutive years 4 teams make the playoffs that didn't make it a year ago. This is a team that wants the Commanders to pick second and make the playoffs, almost make the Super Bowl, that wants the Texans to pick second to win a playoff game. This is a league that sells hope. Why on earth does it benefit the league to fix things to make one team and one team only win? That doesn't help. Look at any of the great movie franchises, Star Wars or Star Trek or Marvel or DC. I don't know any of the Marvel or DCs. That's not my world. Which one Batman's in, I have no idea. But Batman is always about rising from the ashes. Superman, I remember that when I was a kid. When Clark Kent, when Christopher Reeves realized, when he gets his ass kicked in a diner and he watches his hand bleeding, that he's lost his powers. And then all of a sudden the comeback, the revenge. That's why you watch. Every good franchise has the story where the hero gets his ass kicked and then he comes back for revenge. Nobody ever has a story where you always win and win and win. It doesn't behoove the league to have only one team winning. Just stop insulting my intelligence. Okay? Just stop it. Let's talk about the Eagles. Can we do that?
Yeah, please. I'm all, yes, we're all for this.
Okay. What we saw in the first half, and I remember I was there in New York when the ball got snapped over Peyton Manning's head and you went, oops, okay, the Seahawks are going to whip their butt. But I think last night was different. We saw, there was Peyton Manning trying to win a second Super Bowl. Here was Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in his prime, not Peyton at the end. This is Mahomes in his prime, trying to win 3 consecutive championships. Mahomes in his prime, trying to, and everybody would have been wrong, but trying to fuel the fire for those who think that he could have taken the mantle from Brady as the GOAT if they had won that. This is different than what we saw Seattle Denver in New York. This was, in the first half, the single greatest defensive performance by a team in Super Bowl history. They held the Chiefs to 1 first down and 23 yards. 23 yards in the first half, the fewest for any Patrick Mahomes-led team since he entered the league in 2017. And only started one game in 2017, but you get my point. How about this? There were 285 games played this year. 272 in the regular season, 13 culminating in last night in the postseason. 1 first down for the Chiefs in the first half, the fewest in any of those 285 games, the fewest in any first half in the history of the Super Bowl. They rushed for and made it look easy. They didn't bring exotic blitzes. Matter of fact, they didn't blitz a single snap the entire game. Not one. That's what you texted me after the game. 0 blitzes.
0.
They had 4 guys up front who whooped the tails of the 5 guys that the Chiefs had up front. Mahomes was never comfortable. He couldn't step up in the pocket. He couldn't get around the edges. He couldn't do anything until it was garbage time. If this had been a regular season game, they would have pulled Mahomes for his safety and brought in Carson Wentz against his former team, which would have been the ultimate mind-blowing, life comes right back, full circle moment. It was that bad. And Vic Fangio deserves his flowers, his fleur-de-lis, if you will, as he comes full circle and wins in New Orleans, where he 40 years ago was a linebacker coach. It was, Sam, as dominant a performance as I had ever seen, to the point where you knew there would be no comeback. It was over at halftime, and the only thing that mattered was Kendrick Lamar. And once he left the stage, it was boring. They had to go to the filler material on Fox, and tip of the cap to Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady and Tom Rinaldi and Aaron Andrews and Christina Pink and Peter Schrager. Obviously, Schrager just on the post, but tip of the cap to all of them because they had to fill an entire second half of a Super Bowl where on one side of the field, you have the guy that by the time he is done, I'll say it right now, I don't know if he's going to get to 7 Super Bowls, but he'll go down as the greatest of them all. And the game was over at the half. I said that I thought the Eagles were clearly the better team, but I can't go against Mahomes. Man, I was wrong. They were not only the better team, they were so leaps and bounds better than the Chiefs that they could have called the fight at the half.
Now, so many people in what we do have talked about the Chiefs' close calls throughout this season, I should say, really not the seasons. This was in many ways, people said it was the least dominant Chiefs team because of how close the games were this season, but 15 wins, the most wins by any team this season. How could you say that? How could you, 15-2 and in games they cared about, they only lost 1 up until this point.
And so, if they had won, they would have, with 18 wins, tied the all-time record, which is what the Eagles did as well. Now, granted, it's a longer season, but one of those teams was walking out of there with 18 victories, tying the single-season record.
And speaking of records, let's say it now. We've danced around it, and we've talked about it, and it won't be celebrated as much. And we talk about Eric Dickerson and the record for the regular season rushing. And Saquon did not pass Eric Dickerson's record. And as you said, he had an extra game anyway. But regardless, he did, Saquon, that is, pass Terrell Davis for the most yards rushing in a season when you include the postseason.
Sure.
And that the ultimate goal was winning the Super Bowl. We understand that. But to also have a record associated with the season is a pretty nice cherry on top, considering the conversations around week 18 and what they could have done being 100 yards short from that record. This is certainly what Saquon wanted, not necessarily the record per se, but the championship. And it happened, and it wasn't his game. Let's say a couple of things. First of all, this isn't even the Vic that we thought would be winning a Super Bowl in Philadelphia, by the way. That was Michael Vick in 2010. Probably had, we thought, a better chance at the time, outdueled by Aaron Rodgers in that wild card game. But you're right about Vic Fangio, and I thought through the first half, I think if the game did indeed end at halftime, Josh Sweat would have been the Super Bowl MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Sweat disrupted that game in every single way. The Zach Bond interception, which was an incredible catch.
Incredible pick.
And
that was right in front of me. Incredible pick.
Andrew, I mean, that was a play by a receiver that would have been an incredible catch, right? I mean, that was just that was excellent. And again, but when you look at it, Sweat is pushing. I can't remember if it was Caliendo into Mahomes there. I mean, it was brute force there. Now you mentioned, yeah, go for it. What do you think? Because
I was going to say that was what Josh Sweat, what a third round rookie in Jalen Hunt did to Joe Thuney. Joe Thuney deserves all the credit and applause in the world for what he did late in the season to try to save that offensive line. That ended. I mean, that honeymoon ended on Sunday. And what Hunt and Sweat and that defensive line did to Joe Thuney, and really both sides as well. Jawan Taylor, who is obviously when he's not lining up off sides, he's bear hugging guys and just, holding on nearly every down. But if you look at how Thuney was constantly knocked on his heels and on his rear, they were shoving those tackles back into Mahomes where he had to step up and the middle was clogged and there was nowhere to go. They physically dominated. They got in Joe Thuney's chest, long-armed him right in the solar plexus, and, it had to end, and it ended, and it was ugly.
It ended with a bang. It ended with a bang.
It ended with a bang.
And one name that wasn't mentioned a ton on the broadcast because on the stat sheet it wasn't necessarily showing up, but let's just say Jalen Carter.
Who obviously loves punching people in the face.
It's good at that. No, and,
you want to talk about
they missed that one. They missed that one. They missed that one.
The officiating.
Yeah, they missed that one. They missed that one.
And I was stunned that Brady, who loves defending quarterbacks, obviously, and always, and look, he joked about, I used to ride the refs and my relationship with the refs. Tom did a good job. I mean, it's hard to do a great job on a game like that in the second half. It truly is. I was stunned, and Burkhardt went, oh, well, they missed that. Like, that they just didn't go, come on, people. How is this not Chiefs ball? I mean, and say this too about Jalen Carter, that was absolutely intentional. It wasn't, so. I'm trying to get the football.
No, that was
Jalen Carter went bam right to the face. He likes hitting people in the face.
It's something he does. But I also wanted to say,
he has a very particular set of skills.
When he is not doing that with Liam Neeson, he also, although that was actually, I think you were actually not, you were going with Denzel, I think, on that one particular set of skills is also from, exactly. But in regards to Carter, obviously Carter was creating that space for Sweat and Williams on that line and Hunt as well, because he did not necessarily get home, but he was in Mahomes' face, constantly pushing that line backwards. Now, you were talking about greatest defenses all time in a Super Bowl performance. You've got to talk about 85 Bears, 2000 Ravens. The Bucs performance against Mahomes in 2020 should be in that conversation as well, I would say. But considering the opponents, this version of Mahomes is more celebrated, let's say, than the Mahomes that was beaten in 20, right? I mean, just a one-time Super Bowl champion versus a three-time Super Bowl champion. This potentially also, it was 3 sacks on that season in 2020 for the Bucs, and it was 6 sacks. And we'll say it again. You said it. It was the only thing I texted you on Sunday night. 0 blitzes.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about Fangio coming into the defensive meeting whenever he discovered that was going to be the game plan. We will not blitz. And when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Mahomes is so good at beating the best quarterbacks in this league enjoy the blitz, really, because it exposed there is an opening, there is a weakness when you're bringing the extra guy, and I will exploit it and I will find it. And that did not happen. This probably, you know what? Yes. This was the greatest performance when you consider the opponent. I do want to remind the Seahawks that beat that Peyton Manning. Remember that Peyton Manning actually was record-setting. That was the Peyton season. That was the Peyton season where they beat all of the Brady and Moss records. That was R.I.P. Demaryius Thomas. That was an Wes Welker. That was an exceptional Broncos offense that coming into that game, we did not see going that way. And the snap over the head was obviously a rough way to start, but I would say you could argue maybe that Seahawks performance, but, and would it matter? I know the game ended 40-22. If it truly ended 40-6, would we be thinking about this any different? I mean, probably.
No, I think about it the exact same way. And I'm
Good.
talking about
I'm
the
glad.
first half of the first half only.
Yes.
And look, we've also left out what the Patriots did to the Rams.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, truly,
in
from a
February of
score standpoint,
2019
yes.
in Atlanta, but I just looked it up. The Rams had 57 yards in the first half. That's more than double what the Chiefs had. They had 23 yards.
It's
in the
unfathomable.
first half. They didn't cross midfield until 2:30 remained in the third quarter.
It reminded me, actually, this is a way back, but LSU and Alabama played in a national championship in a rematch of a game that was the game of the century that LSU beat Alabama. I believe the final score was 6-3 or 9-6 in the regular season. And then in the championship game, Alabama did not let LSU get to midfield at any point in the game. So it was reminding me of that, and considering the opponent, it was stunning. A couple of other things. Can you imagine a Super Bowl that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are playing in, where they are attempting a 2-point conversion that is irrelevant? There was Gatorade dumped with 2.5 minutes to go. Kenny Pickett
They could have
was
dumped the
taking
Gatorade at
snaps.
halftime. Like Samuel L. Jackson could have dumped Gatorade on Kendrick Lamar at halftime.
You could tell that Fox was stunned that they had 0 points to discuss for the Chiefs at that point. And we haven't said it yet, but first of all, I mean, this is the worst? I'd have to say Mahomes would agree this is the worst playoff performance of his career. I mean, I'm sure that Tampa game is obviously sticking in his mind, but he looked defeated. The 6 sacks.
It is not all his fault.
No, not at all. No.
I'm not excuse blaming. And yes, it was the fewest first downs in a first half in any game he has ever played in his career.
There were 2 drives with back-to-back sacks of Patrick Mahomes. It was, and look, the final stat line is going to look a little more respectable with 3 touchdowns in the end. But if you're watching that game, and by the way, happy birthday to Cooper DeJean. Happy birthday to Saquon Barkley. I can't imagine ever in the world a celebration going better for either of them. That was amazing. But 2 things that I want to really kind of ask you about. Travis Kelce in that game. Travis Kelce's career, I mean, again, unspeakable Hall of Famer. It's all happening. I mean, he unreal. But the Eagles either knew exactly what to do in that situation. He also did drop a pass, but he was a non-factor.
They were dropping 7. Again, you can't overstate how important that is. Patrick Mahomes, okay, had 5 eligibles against 7 every snap. 5 against 7. They were dropping 7. They won with 4 the entire night. And they didn't just win with 4. They dominated. And I love me some Travis Kelce, but clearly at this age, and he's a Hall of Famer, he's going in to Canton, right down the road from Cleveland Heights in his very first ballot, whenever that is. He can't really separate anymore. The Eagles beat him up, and they beat everyone else up, and they were better. And give credit to the fact that it wasn't just Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, it was Jalix Hunt. The first, second, and third round picks from this year all were significant contributors in shutting that team down.
And if you look back at what the Eagles hauled in, and Howie Roseman's been getting a lot of credit, but let's at least say
he deserves it.
The Carson Wentz trade turned into Cooper DeJean, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, and I believe I'm missing one more. I don't think it was Carter, but those 3 at minimum. And that's a nice haul. It ended up being another trade with the Saints as well. But
for a backup quarterback.
That turned out pretty spectacular. And what they turned it into, including, and let's not forget, in regards to talking about Howie Roseman, I mean, Huff was essentially a healthy scratch in this game to make room for Brandon Graham coming back to the field. And Huff was the celebrated offseason move. I mean, Saquon obviously on the offensive side, but on the defensive side, it was Huff, and he just did not DNP.
Look, there are plenty of Howie Roseman misses. That Bryce Huff is one of them. There's Danny Watkins. There's Andre Dillard. There's Jalen Reagor. I mean, look, there are plenty of them. because
Namdi actually is
Namdi,
his
that was
ledger,
way
yeah.
back in the
Yeah, it
day,
was,
right? Big free agent money from the Raiders. All that said, not every GM hits 1,000, but when you're hitting 650, and while everything isn't a homer, everything's a double or triple, almost every. Yeah, you deserve your praise. You put this team together, and it works. Yeah, I often joke that those in the reporting business in our field will praise any and every move Howie Roseman ever makes, and they don't care if it ends up working. Well, most of his, well, not most, it's unfair to say most. Many of his moves, a lot of them, more than other GMs, they work. And they have all these pieces here. You also have consistency, maybe not on the coordinators, because obviously they're losing their coordinators left and right, and they're firing coordinators left and right last year. But Jeff Stoutland on the offensive line, not that you could draft him tomato cans and he could turn them into Hall of Famers, but you lose Jason Kelsey and you rebuild your off. You have Jordan Mailata, who is a rugby player they just drafted in the 6th round. Consistency in coaching helps there as well.
Well, they turned Cam Jurgens. I mean, Jason Kelsey's replacement, Cam Jurgens, is a Pro Bowler in his first season.
You drafted him a year early,
knowing that this was going to happen, of course. But for it to turn out that way, but really the reclamation project is Mekhi Becton. That's the one that we can credit Stoutland with. And by the way, when we talk about those that are carryovers on the Eagles from the 2017 team that did win the Super Bowl, you talk about Lane Johnson. Everyone remembers, obviously, Brandon Graham. There's Jake Elliott, Lovato, the long snapper also. But you know who else is a carryover there? Stoutland. Stoutland is one of the only carryovers there. Question on this. Will Nick Sirianni get a statue outside of the link the way that Doug Peterson and Nick Foles does? I mean, there isn't a singular play from this game that you would never necessarily stamp it with. And to your point, maybe Vic Fangio deserves it. But Sirianni also, the idea of what you said, the turnover in the coaching ranks, in the coordinating ranks, it is a credit to Sirianni to be back 2 times in 3 seasons with all of that turnover.
Sure. There are some will tell you that he was told who he was hiring as his coordinators this year. Now, I don't know that for certain. And if they do have a Sirianni statue, is it him screaming at fans?
Probably.
Or flicking people off? That would be awesome.
Very Philly. Which would be very Philly.
It would be very Philly. I also think Nick Foles deserves credit for winning the internet with his tweet about Tom Brady being good luck. Yes, Eagles win the Super Bowl when Tom Brady is there. He must be the good luck charm.
One guy we didn't mention, just Jalen Hurts. So I'm not going to say credit. I'm not going to say credit, but there's, Philly's a fickle town, and quickly these conversations go that, maybe Hurts and the offense is not doing what they should or could be. And with the season Saquon had, why would they be doing more? But Jalen, first of all, they had not turned the ball over at all in the postseason. They threw the intercept early in that game. The interception that Jalen threw cost the team 3 points. It was 7-0 at that point. I mean, DeJean does then get the pick 6, and the game is, obviously going in that direction. But Jalen was nearly, take the interception, he stands, of course, but he was that is near perfection.
He was the leading rusher as well. I mean, how about the fact that both quarterbacks were their team's leading rusher?
And credit to the Chiefs, the plan to stop Saquon, and I know Chris Jones was quoted as saying he will not rush for 150 yards, and he did not. Nice adjustment for the Eagles to be using him out of the backfield as a pass catcher. But the Chiefs looked good defensively early on in stopping Saquon as well. But that pass that Hurts threw to Devontae Smith was an absolute dime.
As was the OPI one to A.J. Brown. Jalen was great. He deserved the trophy. The defense was the story, but he certainly did his part, and the Eagles were dominant.
I have a cousin who says Hurts is now the second best quarterback in the league. I told him, I said
I don't know that I'll go that far, but can we say this? Jalen Hurts has more rings than Aaron Rodgers.
Well, equal, right? Equal.
No, Aaron doesn't have 2.
No, but Jalen's got 1 ring. He's been there twice.
Okay, so, fair. You're right. You're right. I misspoke. You're right. I take that back.
But how about this? You want to guess what? How about Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, though? It's sort of like in regards to contemporaries, and you would say, oh, well, Jalen doesn't have to fight through Mahomes every season, but Yes, he does, because to get a ring in 2 scenarios, he had Mahomes in his way.
Everybody has to fight through Mahomes.
You have to, of course.
That's just how it is.
Which is the magic. And one thing we didn't really discuss, but first of all, in regards to what Hurts did, yes, this sort of dispels everything, and his story has been amazing. And coming back from this loss, which by the way, he made the confetti falling on him in 2022. His right, I mean, the screensaver on his phone, and that obviously motivated him, et cetera. And you've heard that a lot from players who sit in that moment, but Hurts made it work. And even in that moment where AJ Brown was upset on the sideline, and then he hits him for the touchdown essentially on the next play, that made a major difference. And credit to Jeff Lurie, Andy Reid going to the Chiefs and then firing Andy Reid at that time at the end of the 2012 season. Andy's got 3 Super Bowls since that time, obviously. And the Eagles do now have 2. This was a pretty big swing. If Andy gets 4 and it's 1, you start to wonder, and not that it didn't seem his time was up in Philly, but it is interesting. And credit to Lurie and the Eagles. They've beaten Tom Brady in a Super Bowl and Patrick Mahomes. That's pretty solid. I mean,
it was pretty phenomenal. As was the experience there in New Orleans. A couple of things in New Orleans, obviously, I know holds a spot near and dear to your heart.
Yes.
New Orleans is a very, 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 very good Super Bowl host. It's beautiful, and there are parts of it that obviously are still very much a work in progress. When I meet people traveling overseas in the off season, and they say, "Oh, I really want to come to America," and I say, "Where do you want to go?" And they say, "Well, I'm going to go to New York." I say, "Good call." They go, "I want to go to Vegas." I'm like, "Okay, sure." I go, "But I also recommend you should go to New Orleans." They say, "Why?" Like, because there's nothing like it in the United States. It's just its own world. And there's a lot about that world in New Orleans that can be maddening. It can be a very inefficient town. But the people are awesome with good hearts. It's a beautiful town with great food. Food that is always made with a full stick of butter. But great food. They don't have vegetables there. No greenery. If they do, it's fried and made with butter. But I love the town, the music, the culture, everything about it. It was congested in the city, but it's always congested in the city at the Super Bowl. The traffic was bad, but it's always bad. It's a walkable town with good restaurants and great people. That's all you got to know. And because of that, it is a great Super Bowl city. Now, there's a reason I left at 2 a.m. when I saw that flight was there, that United added that flight. They weren't the only one. JetBlue at 2:20 to JFK to get people to New York as well. United had one to Newark at 2 a.m. I knew I had to get out of there on Monday morning. Monday mornings are always bad after the Super Bowl, even in Vegas, no matter the town. In New Orleans, though, I know people that are probably still stuck there. I heard it was a 2-hour drive because the traffic was backing up at the airport. 2 hours on the highway today to get from the city to the airport at 2 p.m. I mean, it's like 25 miles.
No, it's not far. It's not far at all.
It's not far.
No.
So New Orleans as a Super Bowl town, thumbs up. I'm also very happy to be home. Both can be true. The experience there was great on game day, Sam. Went to the tailgate.
Yeah.
Got to connect with some friends. The official NFL tailgate. Post Malone played. Big Cowboys fan. Cowboys were not at the Super Bowl again this year.
By the way,
I don't know if
quick on that with the Cowboys. I thought it in the NFC Championship. We just didn't say it. But what a season for the Cowboys to endure. Obviously, with what happened to them, moving on.
We
from
were talking about Cowboys.
The Dak injury. I only wanted to say Eagles and Commanders in the NFC Championship was just such a slap in the face, I thought, to the Cowboys. It was just another wow. Because that's the point, right? That's the
You produce these talking head shows way too long. Like, it doesn't always have to come back to the freaking Cowboys. Like, the Cowboys have absolutely nothing to do with this.
You said you went.
I was just I was just explaining to Post Malone, his old man grew up.
Yes.
Like, he grew up with the Cowboys because his old man worked for the Cowboys for all those years. That's all.
That's it. No more for me.
Okay, I'm sorry. Finish.
I just thought that's it. I just love the Cowboys, But my mom is from New Orleans. My parents met at LSU. I also love New Orleans, but people can talk about different Super Bowl cities from Miami to LA when San Diego had it, of course, but I will just stand by this one point. I will say this one point. I just think Vegas is so equipped to do this. It's not a big deal. Vegas does this on a Tuesday.
Except
just
you
Vegas
do have
is
to
so
walk
ready.
everywhere. You can't drive anywhere.
Exactly.
If you think you could drive from, say, if you know the Strip at all, the Wynn or Resort World, or let's say the Conrad, to the Four Seasons, which is at Mandalay, you won't be able to drive there.
No.
I know so many people that missed events last year because they simply couldn't get to where you had to go. You had to walk, and I'm a walker. I'd rather walk.
Yeah.
But there are people that don't want to walk. There are people that are wearing high heels, for example. Yes, like we're talking corporate functions and media functions, people that need to do their job. It was impossible to move around. But Vegas will get another one because it has the hotel rooms, the restaurants, and the convention space, and a new stadium, and an airport that can run efficiently.
It's just ready, right? Vegas is just ready for that at the drop of a hat at any moment, and that makes it a tremendous city for this. And it's just not a big deal. It's not, they don't need, I mean, they have meetings, but it's not a panic that, oh, the Super Bowl is going to be here. They do this all the time. They have conferences for this kind of thing all the time. And I had said the Eagles blueprint needed to be what the Bucs did to Mahomes. I just can't believe how similar that was in the end. That sort of stunning, because it was stunning then to not see the Chiefs score in a Super Bowl, which happened in 2020, to see it scoreless at half, to see it nearly scoreless through three quarters was just, there's still part of me that can't believe that's what we were watching. Those Chiefs in that situation on Sunday. I just don't think, and by the way, credit to, again, I had mentioned this to you. My dad loves to say that he's got these visions. Sam, the Eagles are going to win big. And I said, Dad, you know what? I don't need you walking around on Sunday saying you're right if it happens. I said, why don't you? My dad's never placed a bet in his life. I convinced him. I said, all right. He said 7.5. I said, go find an alternate line somewhere. Talk to somebody minus 7.5. He actually did it. I mean, that was, I will say, going into that game, that was a bold thing to think that the Eagles could win like that. And yet it happened. And 7.5 wasn't even close.
For recreational purposes only. I have no connection whatsoever with any of that. But I applaud Raymond Betesh. Congratulations, Raymond Betesh. New Orleans, the Caesars Superdome, they did a great job with redoing the bowl and the seats, and there's the clubs and all that. The back end of the house still is an old stadium, right? Behind the curtain, it is still very much an old stadium. But you know what? That building's seen a lot. That town has seen a lot. And they were able to pull off the Super Bowl. I was very fortunate, Sam. I watched the game from a suite on the 400 level where all the teams had their suites. And the Super Bowl, and I've done this before on the suite level, all the teams have their suites, and there's a lot of milling in the hallway. You kind of bounce around and go from this one to that one and say hi to people. The cavalcade of folks in that hallway was a fun one. Able to see Leon Bridges right after I walked in. He had stopped by the Brown suite and said hi to him. The Taylor Swift suite was only a few doors down. They had 3 people blocking the door. I was not going to just, bum rush. Matter of fact, if I tried to bum rush the door, I probably would be on the floor face first with a knee in my back and a taser on my neck. But that wasn't going to happen. I did, hang out with Jason Kelsey before the game. He was outside the suite there. It was a cavalcade of who's who. It was just ridiculous. Saw Flavor Flav. We reminisced about
great photo.
No, I saw him again at the game.
Yeah,
reminisced about him being unable to break the guitar when he was a dog pound captain in October in Cleveland before the game. That's a whole long story for that. That's a whole nother podcast for another time. Everybody wanted to get Taylor Swift's picture. And when people figured out where she was, because they put her on the Jumbotron, everyone booed her. People, even Philly fans, give it a break. Just grow up. Anyway, I digress. After the game, I didn't want to go out with the massive humanity, so I hung around a little bit. And then when I go out to the hallway, you see just dozens of cameras trying to get around the suite to see Taylor exiting. So it's all your entertainment shows. Kevin Frazier is there. Everybody's there with their cameras. And I'm like, all right, I mean, sure.
Yeah.
I'm the only NFL reporter up here. I'm off duty. I'll wait a little bit. iPhone at the ready. And then 5 minutes became 20 minutes, became longer. And then Travis Kelce shows up. This is after he showered and spoke to the media, and he had on that
great outfit,
leisure suit. He came up and understandably looked like somebody who just lost the Super Bowl. Excuse me. And then he went into the suite. Doors were closed. I'm like, at this point, they're not coming out anytime soon. I'm going back to the hotel, and I just bailed out. But to show you how nuts it was, as we're standing there waiting, who walks down the hallway? I'll just give you the list. Lady Gaga, okay? Like, walks by as far as I am to this camera. But everyone's got their cameras waiting on Taylor Swift's door. Don't want to miss Taylor Swift. So literally she walks by on her way out of the stadium, and people are like, Gaga. She's like, hey, guys. Just no one stopped to talk to her. All the entertainment reporters, because they can't miss their shot, right? If Taylor walks out. Here comes Ice Spice. Hey, guys. Here comes Megan Thee Stallion. Hey, guys. Like, just walking by. Everybody walking by. No one stops to talk to them. Not acknowledged. There's a nod of the head. But nope. Because they're all just waiting because you got to get the shot of Taylor Swift. And eventually I just went, you guys, I'm done. Like, I didn't even know anything. I know Kevin, obviously, we talked a little bit, but I'm like, I'm out of here. And I got out of there and went back to the hotel, grabbed my bags. And then I'll name drop again here. We talked, Sam, about the text consoling your friend.
Yes.
Text to me, they're kind of impersonal. Like if they had lost and I were there, I would have given you a hug, right?
Yeah.
If your Eagles had lost, I would have given you a hug. Because I mean, hugs feel better than just text where you're like, stop blowing up my phone. Like you just want me to react. Not you, but like people that aren't really my friends, and stop. So I get my bags. I order my Uber. I head down to the elevator. Doors open. And there is Paul Rudd with his Mahomes jacket that he always wears and all that. And I walk out. He goes, hey, Mike. I just look at him, and he clearly, his face, it had been a long night. Understandably. And I look at him, and I'm like, hey, man, I'm sorry. You okay? He goes, yeah, I'm all right. And then we talked about the game for a couple of minutes. I don't know him that well. Matter of fact, we know each other. I've taken photos with him in years past. I so badly wanted to give him a hug, but like you don't know him well enough, right? But that's when you can console your friend. Just we all need a hug sometimes. And if that had been you, and you were the Chiefs fan, I would have given you the hug. But then the conversation got sidetracked because my Uber was coming and the restaurants were like the kitchen were closed. And this young man working for the hotel was like, I could get something room service to your room. And Paul Rudd goes, like, maybe just like chicken fingers and French fries. And he's like, would you like me to bring that to the room? He goes, you would do that? Yeah. We'll get it done. And I'm like, enjoy your chicken tenders and fries. I'm out of here. And went to the airport and flew home. I never, ever take for granted going to the Super Bowl. This was my 24th trip to the Super Bowl week, and I did the math. It was my 19th Super Bowl last night. And it never gets old, and I'm always grateful. And the anthem, which was great again last night, always gives me chills. Yeah, I'm lucky to do what I do. We're lucky to sit here in our basements and talk about sports. It was cool. It was great. It is 177 days until the Hall of Fame game in Canton, Ohio. And 1 month from today, the negotiation window opens on free agency. There is no off season. 2 weeks from right now, I will be sitting at Elmo's having. I can't have steak. It's just too much steak that week. I got a slow player with the salmon on night one, but an old fashioned and a meal with some friends. It's 2 weeks away. 2 weeks. Like there is no off season. People arrive the combine. Everyone will be in Indianapolis 2 weeks from today. The quarterbacks don't talk until Friday, the 28th. But on Monday, the 24th, everyone will be in Indianapolis, and the coaches start talking on Tuesday.
That's wild. I mean, and I've always said this. I've always said parade day is my least favorite day, and it's still up in the air whether I'll go to Philly for the parade. I did go in 2018, of February 2018. But it's when of course, when a team that you love wins the Super Bowl, and you're lucky if it happens in a lifetime. But the saddest thing is actually the start of the next season. Because you realize then that's it, right? It's like now you got to do it again.
Yep.
You've got these months to say you're the best, and then all of a sudden you're just anybody else, right? You're just anybody else when that next season starts. And so to think in 2 weeks all the work begins again, where's the chance to exhale?
Oh, the work has already. I mean, for all the other teams, teams that win the Super Bowl will always tell you first world problem. They're so far behind, but at the same time, everyone not named the GM is working on the draft.
Yes.
That's already been done. And about Howie Roseman's working on the draft too. Howie made a point, and I had this conversation with him and some others early in the week, not to go out and party, quite the opposite, but to enjoy it this time around. Right. So yeah, he was out. Never saw him with a drink in his hand, but saw him at a few events. You got to enjoy it a little bit, especially the second time around. And for GMs, the hay is in the barn, right? There is nothing you can do. Really, some people argue that after the trade deadline, there's really nothing to do, which isn't fair. You're just churning the bottom half of your roster. You're making IR moves. There are plenty of roster moves and roster gymnastics that you've got to pull off. But when it gets to this point, hey, enjoy it. But for most teams, draft meetings started 2 weeks ago. You finish Mobile, you get through the Senior Bowl and the East-West game, and then draft meetings start Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of that next week, where a lot of teams bring all their scouting staff, guys that work remotely and live scouting on the road. They bring them into town, and they sit down and they start building that big board, and then you go to Indianapolis 2 weeks from today. The workouts don't begin until later, and the made-for-TV stuff Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and all that. But, yep, Monday, my annual got a buddy that I always catch up with that we always sit at the bar on Monday night at Elmo's and catch up, and then it's fantastic. Anyway.
Shrimp cocktail, right? Shrimp cocktail for you, though?
Always.
Do you enjoy it, right? Of course.
Always, yeah.
And by the way, just some synergy there. 2017 or 2018, technically February, Brian Dawkins was elected to the Hall of Fame. Eagles, obviously. Eagles,
Eric Allen.
Safety. And then Eric Allen, the synergy there. Eric Allen elected to the Hall of Fame, and the Eagles won the Super Bowl both times. So I'd imagine, and Brian Dawkins then came out and sort of opened the season for the Eagles in 2018. I would imagine Eric Allen would do the same.
And that game could very well be against the Rams if you look at the possible opponents next season. All right, this is going to do it. We're rambling. We should shut up now. Congratulations again to your Philadelphia Eagles, your Super Bowl champions. For Sam Betesh, Super Bowl champion. I'm Andrew Siciliano. This is Thinking Out Loud. See ya.